Her hands shook as she wiped the dust off the golden frame. The man in the portrait smiled gently, a face she thought she'd never see again. For a moment, the busy mansion around her disappeared, and all she could hear was the echo of laughter from a small orphanage long ago. He had been just a boy then, barefoot, hungry, but full of dreams. And now, his eyes looked back at her from this grand wall. But what she didn't know yet was that this meeting, across time, across pain, would uncover a truth neither of them had ever spoken. Have you ever met someone again and realized life had written a story you never expected? Tell us in the comments. Before we begin, hit subscribe. It's appreciated. It was another quiet morning for Maria. The sun had barely risen, and the big house still slept. She moved carefully through the wide halls, her old shoes brushing against the polished floor. She had worked as a maid here for almost 5 years, cleaning rooms she could never dream of living in. The smell of fresh bread from the kitchen mixed with the faint scent of perfume left behind by her employer's guests. To everyone, she was just the help, polite, invisible, and always tired. Maria was from a small orphanage on the outskirts of town. She had no family name to carry, no photos from childhood, only memories of faces that faded with time. Yet she carried a kind heart. Every coin she saved went to helping the children at that same orphanage. She always told herself that kindness was the only thing she truly owned. That morning, her task was to clean the study, a room she rarely entered. It was filled with shelves of heavy books and framed photos of people dressed in fine clothes. As she moved around the desk, something caught her eye, a large portrait above the fireplace. The man in it had a soft smile, eyes that seemed gentle but strong. She stopped, feeling a strange pull in her chest. There was something about that face, something too familiar. She stepped closer, her breath slowing as she studied it. The way his eyes curved when he smiled, the small scar near his eyebrow. It felt like a memory coming alive. Her heart began to race. Could it be? No, it couldn't. He was gone, lost to the world like so many from the orphanage. And yet, here he was, looking back at her from a frame lined with gold. Maria didn't know it yet, but the story behind that portrait would change everything she believed about kindness, destiny, and the invisible ties that hold people together. If you were in her place, what would you have done? Tell us in the comments. Maria gazed at the portrait of Mr. Daniel Foster, the name seizing her breath. It was the same Daniel who shared his childhood with her in the orphanage, the one who left years ago with a rich family, promising to stay in touch, a promise broken by time. Standing in the magnificent mansion built on his success, Maria, who felt invisible to the world outside, was reminded of the pure dreams they once shared. She returned to the portrait daily, whispering prayers, wondering if he ever thought of her. One afternoon, she overheard a conversation. "Mr. Foster is back from London tomorrow." Daniel was coming home. That night, Maria wrestled with fear and hope. Would he recognize her? Would he even want to? She considered hiding behind the silence she had mastered to avoid being seen and judged, afraid of facing the truth of what she was, someone the world rarely looked at twice. Is there a specific detail about Maria or Daniel's past you'd like me to focus on in the next part of the story? When morning came, Maria prepared the house for his return. She wanted everything perfect, the flowers trimmed, the curtains spotless, the air fresh with the scent of lemon polish. But deep inside, she wasn't just cleaning a home. She was cleaning the corners of her own heart, readying it for a memory she had long buried. The door finally opened. Laughter filled the hallway, footsteps, greetings, voices that carried pride. And then she heard it, a familiar tone, deeper now but warm, Daniel's voice. She peeked through the corner of the corridor, her breath catching in her throat. He walked right past her, tall, confident, and with the same kind eyes. But they held no recognition. "Just another maid," Maria whispered. "Welcome home, Daniel," her words lost. Yet a faint hope stirred within her that one day he would see her as the person who once shared his childhood. The next morning, Maria was dusting the study, her heart heavy, when the door opened. It was Daniel on the phone. She bowed her head, feeling invisible. But as he turned toward the fireplace, his voice stopped. Maria looked up and their eyes finally met. Confusion crossed his face as he stepped closer. "Have we met before?" he asked gently. Maria hesitated. Her lips trembled. "You wouldn't remember, sir," she whispered. "It was a long time ago, back at St. Mary's Orphanage." The room went still. His hand loosened, the cup shaking slightly. "St. Mary's?" he repeated, his voice softer now. His eyes widened, not in disbelief, but in recognition. He looked at her again, really looked. The way her eyes curved when she smiled, the quiet grace in her face. Memories came flooding back, the laughter, the cold nights, the small girl who used to share her bread with him, even when she had none for herself. Maria saw his eyes fill with tears, and suddenly all the years between them disappeared. The mansion, the walls, the class, the distance, none of it mattered. He stepped closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "Maria!" Her name fell from his lips like a prayer. In that moment, time slowed. Two children who had once shared the same blanket of stars now stood worlds apart, and yet closer than ever. Maria covered her face, tears streaming down her cheeks. She had spent years being unseen, unheard. But now someone finally saw her. Truly saw her. Daniel's hand trembled as he reached for her shoulder. "All these years," he said softly, "I've been looking for you." Maria couldn't speak. She only nodded, her heart full and breaking all at once. It wasn't anger she felt or pride, it was peace. The kind that comes when life brings you full circle, even just for a moment. The rain outside grew heavier, echoing softly in the silence that followed. And in that quiet room, two souls who had once lost each other found something even greater. The truth that kindness never disappears. It just waits to be remembered. What would you have done if this truth was suddenly staring back at you? Tell us in the comments. For days after that moment, the house felt different. Maria still did her work, but something in her heart had changed. The weight she had carried, of being unseen, forgotten, felt lighter now. Daniel made sure to speak with her whenever he could, asking about the orphanage, about the children, about the dreams they once shared under that broken roof. One evening, as the sun melted into gold through the tall windows, Daniel walked into the kitchen where Maria was cleaning. He told her he had visited St. Mary's that morning. The children there had laughed when he arrived with boxes of food and supplies, calling him Uncle Daniel. But what touched him most was when the old caretaker said softly, "Maria never forgot you. She built this place back up with her own hands." Maria smiled quietly, her eyes shining. She didn't do it for thanks. She did it because kindness was the only home she ever had. That night, Daniel called her into the study again. The portrait above the fireplace still hung proudly, but beside it, another frame had been added. A photograph of the orphanage, surrounded by children, their faces full of joy. And there, standing among them, was Maria. He turned to her and said, "This house has everything I could ever want. But that place, the orphanage, that's where my story began, and you kept it alive." Maria's heart swelled, not from pride, but from something deeper. A feeling that her life had finally been seen, her story finally heard. For so long, she had believed her kindness went unnoticed. But now she understood. Even quiet goodness leaves a mark. When Daniel later funded a new building for St. Mary's, he named it the House of Second Chances. And at the entrance, a small plaque read, "In honor of those who gave love, even when they had nothing left to give." Maria visited often. The laughter of the children filled her heart, reminding her that even when the world divides people by class, color, or fate, kindness finds a way to cross every wall. She would sometimes stand in front of that plaque, close her eyes, and smile. Not because she was proud, but because she finally understood something simple. Love never forgets. Maybe that's what life is really about. Not how far we rise, but how gently we lift others along the way. What part of this story stayed with you the most? Tell us in the comments. Show some love with a like and subscribe to stay inspired.